All right. Let's call to order the Jail District Board of Directors special meeting for Friday, June 20th. We're meeting in the Supervisors Executive Conference Room in Bisbee, Arizona. Pursuant to ARS 38431.02H, the public will have physical access to the meeting room 15 minutes prior to the start of the meeting. Any item on this agenda is open for discussion and possible action. Members of the Board of Supervisors may attend in person or via Microsoft Teams. Members of the public may also attend via Microsoft Teams or the mobile app. Pursuant to ARS 38431.03B, minutes and discussions in executive session shall be kept confidential. We'll begin with a roll call. District 1.
Crosby is here.
District 2.
Gomez is here.
District 3. Antonori is here. All right. And I will defer real quickly to Ms. Gilman, and then we can discuss whether we need to go into executive session or not.
Sure. So today I've asked Stifel Public Finance representatives from Stifel to present to the board discussions we've been having over the past few weeks about the bond financing for the jail district, what that outlook would be, whether we did $100 million or $120 or $130, and what our debt service would be. And then Zach Sakas from Greenberg and Torrig in Phoenix works with Stifel, and he's been our bond counsel advising us to make sure the ballot language is appropriate for any bond that we go out to in the future. And so he's also going to talk to us about ballot language.
Okay.
So
do we, at this point, I don't think we do.
Yeah, let's go into executive.
You want to do executive session?
for the bond presentation?
Well, I mean, for the bond presentation.
I would say do the bond presentation first, and then if we want to get into details on the language and the aspects of the type and what we want, we'll go into executive. Is that cool?
Yes.
All right. So we get that. All right. So, yeah. So let's do the public piece of this first. So, sir, it's all yours.
Okay. Well, thank you, Sharon. Good morning, members of the board. Mark Reeder with Stifel, as mentioned. We're, as you know, been retained by the county to assist you with some of the technical stuff. And, you know, we're your investment bank, so our job for the county is to help you through a lot of the economics and a lot of the finance I'm going to share with you in a moment, right? And help you with the election, voter pamphlet, things of that nature, be by your side to answer questions. And then ultimately, at the end of the day, if the election is successful, our job is to raise capital for you through the issuance of Cochise County Jail District revenue bonds. So I've had the pleasure of working with almost all the counties in the state, been involved in a lot of jail district financings, elections, and very appreciative to be with you this morning. So we've done our homework here. We're hoping that this is very helpful. Zach and I are going to tag team this a little bit. I'm going to start off really here with as what I understand is your policy objectives. Just been in the room with Sharon a little bit talking. So on page 2, does everybody have a copy of our PowerPoint? And I'm going to bring it up here so everybody can see it. So we spent a little time on this and appreciate your input. If we're missing something on here, let us know. If we're inaccurate with some of our policy objectives, please let us know. Design, plan, and construct jail facilities to meet the long-term objective of the county. You've been working on that, of course. You have a jail challenge here in your county, and you've been working on the designing and planning, if you will. It's my understanding that the estimated construction budget is in process. That's one piece of information we don't have prior to the call for the election is we don't have complete final numbers yet. I think you have some planning numbers that are hopefully close. And it's my understanding it's somewhere in the $120 to $130 million range, but let us know if that changes.
We're going to have a meeting with the builder's agent.
That's at the end of July.
All right. So one of the things we're going to look at is we're going to look at a design to cost sort of approach where like two colleagues and I will kind of get together in a prior meeting where we kind of figure out what our tolerance level is. Yeah. And then we will let them know what that number is, and then they're going to come back with some options to back into that number. But we're going to be in that general area.
Okay, so a little bit of a moving target, fair, but still doing a little more homework.
Well, we're going to have to see if we give them a number and they look and say there's like no way, or maybe I could do it for less. Maybe they could say, hey, well, yeah, we could give you this for, so that's what we haven't had that discussion.
That's right. Okay. Congratulations on the $20 million from the state, as I understand it. That's a set aside for you.
Yeah, hang on. So the budget's still going in, and I just went through the budget, and it is not in there. So it was in the House budget. It was not in the Senate budget. The Senate budget now that's going through is different. So that's got to be negotiated back in.
I believe
It expires next year.
it expires. They were putting in an
Extension for 5 years.
Yeah.
That is not in the Senate budget. So we are working on making sure that it's in the House budget that the House did. It was in there, but for some reason, and we'll talk about that offline, but I have a feeling why it may not be in there.
Mm-hmm.
But this is Arizona politics, right? So
right.
Hopefully in the reconciliation process and negotiation, we can get that negotiated back in.
Okay. All right.
But it is there now.
Okay.
But we
the
don't.
extension we need. Yeah.
We need the
Okay.
extension.
All right.
Yeah, we need the extension.
All the best on that. That would be
Yeah.
a nice grant, if you will, from the state. So we'll keep an eye on that, and hopefully that gets back in, right?
Right.
Okay. We know that the amortization or the length of the sales tax, if successful, and the related amortization of any bonds to be issued is a sensitive item, sensitive topic for you. I've got some good numbers in here. I think we can help get our arms around that. Fair statement on that? In other words, if the tax passes, we have a revenue stream by which to complete the construction of our jail. And as soon as the bonds are paid off, if you will, that tax goes away.
Correct.
Okay. All right. So bear with us on that. We've done some homework for you on that. Repay debt from the voter approved half-cent sales tax, or what we call transaction privilege tax. Okay. Any revenue, the revenue from the TPT, I'm going to call it, only to be used for debt service or capital. Is that a fair?
That is correct.
Public policy from the state?
Every dime will go to.
No operating money coming
Nope.
off the
Nope.
the 10 to 11 million
Yeah.
we're going to talk about here in a minute.
Yeah.
Okay, so all good on that.
Only to the debt service to pay this thing off as fast as we can.
Okay, so we kind of have that kind of modeled in here as well. If we sell $100 million in bonds, right, a year from now if it passes, or 18 months, whenever you're ready, we're going to take the money and we're going to invest it while you spend it on your construction. So there's several $1 million on $100 million that'll be invested.
Okay.
So those interest earnings,
Approximately what are those interest earnings? Would he get 8%, 9%?
no, we'll buy treasuries, so you're
Gonna
county
be
treasury.
low. So you're gonna be like
4 or 5, 4% money,
Yeah.
but 4% money on 100 million adds up.
Okay. All right. So
And
it'll be
you'll
a
draw
wash.
down
It'll
over.
be a wash on the interest.
Yeah, so you'll offset for a couple years while you
Whether
build it.
Yeah, that's good.
Fair? It's going to take you what,
It'll
18
cover,
months?
it'll cover the interest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll have, let's just say $3 or $4 million ish of interest earnings.
Right.
That's the county's money. We can use that to pay debt down, or debt service, or cost overruns.
It'll be paying the interest of the money that's borrowed is what it'll be doing.
Yeah.
Like I said, so that'll be a wash.
Okay.
Right.
So
that's
that'll
good
help
news.
the
Then
budget though.
Well, yeah, because then we could put all of that money towards the principal that we get from the sales tax. We could use the majority of the revenue generated from the investments you guys make to pay for the interest on the bonds, and then that way there we have principal available.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so I call that good news.
Yeah.
Number 7, again, back to your objectives, pay down debt as excess revenue permits, because we're going to have an economically sensitive revenue stream here, aren't we? We're going to talk about that in a moment.
Yeah, inflation does affect
That's right.
TPT revenue.
Yeah.
So there's potential economic
That's right.
up and down
Up and down.
that could help us or
It's-
hurt us depending on what happens over
Yeah,
the
it's
next
a pretty resilient
10 to
revenue
15
stream,
years.
all in all, but it does have its ups and downs. We got a nice chart for you here in a moment. So, to the extent we have excess revenues, we're going to put in provisions in the bond issue when we sell bonds down the road, the ability to pay your bonds down early. Okay.
That's good.
It's not always the case with the issuance of municipal bonds, the income, the interest of which is exempt from state and federal taxation, as you know, as a
Right.
governmental entity. We like 4% money, don't we?
Yeah.
We're in a 4% environment here. We like 4% money. The investors buy the bonds, they receive interest from Cochise County Jail District, and they don't have to pay taxes on their interest income, allowing the county to borrow at, if you will, lower rates. All good? You like that?
No, but that's okay. It's contrary to market economics. I just don't talk with my hands like a lot of other people. So.
All right. But for the county, that's good. I think we all agree. Okay. And then number 8, county intends to dissolve the jail district after repayment in full of the bonds. And I'm going to let Zach touch on that. There's some technical issues there, but Zach will. Okay. So there was 8 public policy item objectives there. What did I miss? Is that all fair?
Yeah,
Anything you want me to take off?
Close. That's
Yeah.
Okay.
That's good. Shortest term.
Well, that's the payment.
Maybe
down.
more federal money. You want me to put that on here?
Oh, no, I mean, to Tom's point is if,
That's the least interest.
we're gonna, after we
Biggest
get,
payments, but the least interest.
exactly, right? So we're gonna figure out, based on the revenue stream projected, what period we will need to pay that off if that stays steady.
Right.
Then that would be what we bond for. But if we get additional revenue or grants or whatever, we can then throw that in there. And that's why he's got the option to pay it off early.
Yeah.
In case we
Yeah.
get additional sources
Yeah.
of revenue,
Well,
revenue improves.
That's right.
Right.
So I guess on what we were going to do now, I think we might pivot. Zach was going to kind of generally go over jail district statute. You want me to go ahead and proceed with the economic and finance, and then have Zach go over this slide later?
We'll do the executive session with him.
Want to do that, Zach?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. We'll skip
Okay,
it and then come back.
Now, this will be a good discussion in e-session with you all. So we'll come back to that. So thank you for that. Okay, let's go back to finance and economics. So we did a, 10-year chart here. And this is your local county sales tax, your local county TPT, we call it, right, over the years. And so, wow. Look at 2021.
I don't like this chart.
Well, this is why
we need another play.
this goes to show you what I call the economic. It's a very economically sensitive revenue stream, depending upon what's
Right.
going on in the world. And we've all experienced COVIDs, and we've experienced recessions and slowdowns and increases, and especially in Arizona. So I don't know. When I look at this, I see in 2013-14, you had $7 million, and you're probably going to finish the year, if you go all the way over to 23-24, or you did finish the year, as I understand it, at about $11 million. You almost doubled. So good job on that. The 2021, I think that may have been driven by the border wall. And you guys know more about some of your local economic activity, but you hit a nice $11 million revenue stream. The next year it came down to 9.8, pushing 10. And then 22-23 was a good year. The economy was doing pretty well at 10.7, and then finished 23-24 at 11. And 24-25 will be over in 10 days for your county. And I think, Sharon, when I chatted with you, you thought you might end the year with
Should have 12 or around 11.
Yeah, we shipped the second half in 2 days, and all that we're at like 9 right now.
Oh, we are?
So,
Okay. So probably 10.
Okay. Maybe finish the year at 10. So maybe down a little bit from 23-24. So it's bouncing around on us. So this is where we have to be careful. We're trying to prepare a financial plan here that works for you, that doesn't put us in a pickle, and then structure our election and our transaction public policy-wise to achieve those objectives. Okay, so I want to start with kind of the history of our TPT, which would mirror, the jail district certainly obviously will mirror exactly what the county does.
Pretty close. Generally, though, you're still going to see, when you raise taxes, there's a little drop off. So I wouldn't call it quite one.
Yeah.
Dollar for dollar.
No, hopefully no.
But right now, we are operating in that environment. So this is a time right now to gauge that revenue stream, because we are collecting both taxes right now, the regular TPT and the jail tax TPT. So
You are.
Stacy probably can model it. Yeah, she can model it pretty good. So they're going to be identical, because they're collected at the point of sale at the same time. What I'm getting at is prior to the half-cent sales tax, you were probably on a trajectory, and now that trajectory came down because you raised taxes with the other half-cent. So,
Yeah.
so that's what I'm talking about, but the taxes will be identical.
Right.
No,
Because they're both
they're actually performing the same. That trajectory is still that growth trajectory.
is still the same.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's good news.
You got the border wall coming, the border construction coming
For the Board
over
of
the
Ed.
next couple of years. Isn't that going to generate construction
Most
sales
of the
tax back to the
stuff is,
county?
in along here, right? There's not much left.
That's a big number.
Sales tax.
Port of entry.
Oh, the port of entry. Oh, yeah, yeah. There'll be a significant construction.
Port of
sales
entry,
tax
sorry.
For the port of entry.
Yeah, that's extra revenue for us, right?
Right, right.
Pay down that debt. So I understand that's going pretty soon. I asked Sharon about that earlier this morning.
What about if we're going to do the shortest term? It's going to
From that
exceed
district.
Kathleen, the amount
Yeah,
of
so
tax that we're going to get, I think.
you what?
You want to do the shortest term, really cut down the number of years.
That's an option. So we talked about that where maybe we supplement the bond out of general fund revenue in and above to get the, well, that's what we're going to talk about for
Right, when he gets into his,
when he gives us the interest and the time and whatnot. If there is a bubble, to your point, let's just say we do 10 years, for an example. And Mark comes back and he says, look, if you guys go to 12 years, it's going to be this much more. If you go to 8, I don't even know if there is an 8-year bond, but 8 years, it's going to be less. And we might grab that lesser term and then supplement if we have to, because we're going to have to pay more principal. There may not be enough sales tax revenue to pay that principal. We would have to supplement that with general fund revenue.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But we gotta look at that though.
I calculated 180 million and for 8 years at 4.5%, and the yearly payments were 26 million. So if you cut all that stuff in half, then you're talking, about 100 million. You're talking 13 million. As
We just
so he has some slides. coming up that-
Yeah. But I'm with you. I'm with you.
I'm with you. As
Maybe-
long as we can still maintain our county roads and we still can maintain the services that we have to, that's also
Yeah.
part of the equation.
Consideration, yeah.
Lots of demands on county
Yeah.
budgets. Fair. Just so much infrastructure and other needs that you're dealing with. So we hear you. Okay, all good. So this is just kind of an assumption slide where this assumes the election passes in November of 25. Cochise County Jail District would be the issuing entity. It's a political subdivision of the county, of which you're the board of directors, as you guys know. We would issue revenue bonds. We call them pledged revenue bonds, if you will. You hear that term. No property taxes, obviously, right? If it passes, the half-cent we think will generate, we just talked about this.
Yeah, around 10 million.
Let's go 10 million-ish, hopefully more. The maintenance of effort, of course, is on all county jail districts, your maintenance of effort will be about 6.3 million from what we understand. So that'll be a contribution to the jail district to pay M&O.
Right,
Go
but that's going to fund
Yeah.
the
That's
current operations of the
Yeah.
district, right?
So, okay.
And that
so-
goes back when the district's dissolved.
Right, that's right. So I put that on there because I'm going to talk about two things here in a moment. Bear with me. I'm going to talk about cash flow. Cash flow pays off debt. That's very important on our policies. And I'm going to share with you pledged revenues when we go out and sell bonds if it passes. Two different things. We get to pledge our maintenance of effort and our local. That's a good thing. That helps with our credit rating. Doesn't preclude you from using any of the 6.3 million, but you will pledge it. Fair?
Mm-hmm.
I suppose if there was some kind of a shortfall, that would be funds available to make debt payments. Remember, debt payments are first lien. You got to pay them.
Yeah.
You guys understand that. So I put this on here. So we're going to talk about cash flow and pledged revenues. Amortization. Zach has shared with me under the statute, jail districts can amortize bonds over 25 years. I don't think we're going to do that in Cochise County. Bear with me. Credit rating. We think you're a very strong credit. All in all.
What are we? We're AAA with two capitals, and is that what we are? What are we, Stacy?
Couple, right?
You're you don't currently have a credit rating, but because you haven't been access to capital markets and
We don't have a credit rating. We got to have a credit rating.
Well, we haven't,
We're
we
not
don't
in
have
debt.
any.
You haven't, you're not in debt. That's the way you've been wanting it.
They never rate, they don't rate us.
That's true.
So I think I can get you in the double A.
Let me ask you then, does the credit rating,
Minus.
because it's a special district and a political subdivision, does the credit rating associated with that bond go to the special district?
Yep.
Oh, so it doesn't even come to
But
the,
they take the county, they take management, and they take county finances. No, they take all. Oh, they take that all.
I got it. But the lien is going to be on the jail.
Yeah.
So if we don't pay, you guys just come and foreclose on the jail.
Yeah, I don't want to do that, but
I'm sure Kyrie Bradshaw is falling out of his chair right now.
my boss wanted me to repossess a used car once, and that was enough for me. Okay.
All right. So but what I'm getting at is just for the technicality of the credit rating, we would not benefit on that either, right? Because it's going to be, the credit rating is going to go towards the jail district.
Yes. So we'll stay at
But
it.
it's still your-
Yeah, the county won't get hit though. That's what I'm saying, or benefit from it either,
We won't go into.
because it ain't the county borrowing the money; it's the jail district borrowing the money.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all right.
The jail district won't have any impact if the county ever wanted to do something on its own. They're mutually
Yeah.
exclusive. They're kind of intertwined because of management, finances, and things like that. But jail districts are a separate credit by itself on its own
All right.
with its own revenue stream. Okay. So I don't mean to get in the weeds with you too much, but I do want to educate the board. Hope you find this helpful.
Yeah.
Might be a little much, but thank you for bearing with me on this bond stuff. Okay. Rate, we're going to run it at 4.5 for now. If you were in the market today, you'd be about 4.5. Now, maybe I should make it 4.75 or 5, but
Does the federal funds rate affect this? So if the Fed lowered it a
yeah.
half a point, would
Yeah.
you guys go down like a half a
Yeah.
point? Or
yeah, it's market
so
driven.
It is.
Treasuries drop and munis drop, and
Okay.
they're all kind of intertwined a little bit. Recognize that munis have their own credit and their own unique nature.
Yeah, but they still,
Yeah.
the cash
Yeah.
flow still
Yeah.
bounds from the
That's
Federal
right.
Reserve. So, yeah.
If the Federal Reserve lowers interest rates in September, that's the latest thought. They
Right.
kept them they unchanged this week. You read about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Probably not going to lower them in July. If economic indicators of job slowdowns, okay, which are kind of percolating out there a little bit, tariff stuff, uncertainty, stuff going on, they lower it September, we would expect our muni bonds to lower. Now, timing wise for you all, if the election passes, you have a lot of planning to do, engineering, architectural planning, correct?
Right. So that's why you're
It's
giving
going
us
to
a
take
year.
it's going to take you a year. You guys would know better than me. And I know you've done some homework on this. But until you bring them on board, you don't know the scope, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you'll get cost estimates. And then maybe we sell bonds, like I said, January of 2027. First quarter of 2027. So you tell us when. Issuing the bonds is the fairly easy part of this as you finish the construction side.
Okay.
All good?
All right.
All right. So that's that. All right. Now let's have some fun with this. It's budget season for our board as well. How come that's not moving on? Oh, it's goes backwards. Okay. Here we go. Thanks. Okay. We put this in here. Here's our pledged revenues. There's our 10 million. I think everybody's kind of coming to some kind of a reasonable agreement on what our half cent will generate. We're going to use 10 million as probably a safe number.
Stacy's nodding her head over there.
Stacy, you good?
Thumbs up, thumbs
All right, I
up.
like that. And then our maintenance of effort, 6.3 million right now. That needs some, we'll fix all that later. So 16.3 million. So if I'm an investor, when we go sell bonds, I get 16.3 million of pledged revenue. I like that. Not worried about any issues here, but that's good. That helps us get to that AA category. Okay. So we got some numbers in here. We're going to start with 120 million. Now, I just thought of something that we can also add for later presentations. If the election is successful in November of 25, Department of Revenue starts collecting it in
July
July
of 26.
July of 26, right in the middle of your planning. So you're going to collect a bunch of sales tax revenue, aren't you? That's a good thing. And we can use that as a cash buildup to lower the amount that we borrow. or use it for cost overruns.
Yeah, that's why
Yeah.
So I
we're
guess
looking
that
at
would
about
be-
a 10 million.
Yeah.
If we could set
For a year,
aside,
10 million.
yeah, so there's already money in there now.
12.
What's in there now?
12 million.
12 million plus whatever we generate. If we would probably, this is just me, I don't want to
Mhm.
impose on you guys, but probably about as an MR management reserve for overruns or unforeseen costs, we probably want to just keep 10 million and park it and let Kathleen or Kathy.
Kathleen.
Is it
Kathy,
Trey?
oh, you want to keep.
Oh, Kathy Trey.
Kathy, yeah, let her, let her,
Let me have
I
it
get
for
you
my
guys mixed
district.
up, I don't know why. So
We'll have to fix
just let her park it somewhere she
Yeah.
can generate some revenue on, and just have that in case we have an issue that we need to
Yeah.
dip into. So 10 million MR. And then as the jail's done, whatever that is, we can just dump it all at the end into the bonds.
Okay, so that's positive. All good there?
Yeah.
All right, there's our 20 million. The bonds, we issue 100 million. And, okay, this is a little hard to see. So pull up this. I'm on page 8.
Yeah.
So let's just, sorry, there's so many numbers here. This is super important. I think this will be very helpful for you. So now we're trying to design our debt structure. We're not making any decisions on this, but let's go through it. So column 4 is what we just went over, pledged revenues, right? Column 2 is our cash flow number. So when we sell bonds, we don't want to exceed 10 million, obviously, right? We don't even want to go up to 10 million. Fair?
We'll talk about that.
Okay, all right.
We may.
We just
Back
wanted
to Mr. Crosby's point. If it's beneficial to us, we may want to
okay.
Go above that number.
Okay, good. So here's what I did. I just want to start with 20. I know you don't want to do 20. I don't think we're going to need to do 20. Amortization.
Yeah.
I want to start with that just to get you guys for starters because I think this will be helpful.
25.
So let's say, and I would say honestly, most of our jail districts we do around the state are generally 20 or 25. But you can go a little shorter if you want. So I did $100 million in revenue bonds, column 5, right? At 4.5%. Bear with me on the rate. We're just going to use that for now. And very simple amortization, no different than a mortgage. You're $7.5 million and a debt payment in column 7. Pretty simple. Well, I like that. I like that. I like that I've got 10 million in column 2 to cover 7.5, don't I?
Right.
If there's a big recession, we're in good shape here.
Right.
Okay. I got $1.33 of revenue for every dollar of debt in column 8, but I'm generating $2.5 million more than I need for my debt payment. That's our cushion. Fair? It's a nice cushion. Maybe it's too much cushion. So what we could do, if you like the 20-year amortization structure, we know or we think we're going to collect $2.5 million more a year, and we'll take that money and we'll pay debt down with it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to set up some special call provisions when we do the bond issue, so bear with me. Now, most bond issues we do, there's a preferable 10-year lockout. Okay? That's the way the muni market works, whether you're City of Sierra Vista or Cochise County or whatever. That being said, when a client has a preference for early calls, we did this for Pinal. Pinal did a big project up there for Lucid. You guys all familiar with the Lucid corporate deal that they did up there?
Is a solar panels?
Electric vehicles. They're manufacturing. They wanted a 4-year payoff. We set a 4-year up, boom, we got it done. Okay, so work with me as we continue to work together over the next couple years. We'll come back to you, but this will give you an idea of how much extra cash you got coming off the 10 million versus your debt payment. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I know you got questions, which is great. Let's go to the next page. Recognizing that one of our policy objectives is to pay debt down, we can do it a number of ways here. And remember, one of the things I don't want to see you get into a pickle on is we don't know yet. We have an idea, but we don't know yet the exact amount of bonds that you want to issue. Now, we could cap it if you want. So the nice thing about having a 20-year amortization in the ballot, if you will, it allows us to continue to work through our budget and refine it. And we don't need to make this decision for 18 months. Other than
What you're saying is if we need to make if we determine if the cost is a certain amount, we can come back and do another bond and add that bond.
Well, what I'm saying is at the time, we're not going to do a bond issue for 18 months. Fair?
Gotcha.
Hopefully sooner, but just
Yeah,
18
January 27th, so 18 months from now.
right. So when we sell bonds, we're going to know the exact number of your construction budget.
By then,
By
yes.
then, yes.
Fair?
Uh-huh.
So as you know, there's still inflation out there. And what I'm finding out working around the state on public works project is that there's oftentimes some surprises out there. I'm not saying it's going to happen here.
A lot of that comes to the way we build this thing, and when whoever the
Yeah.
builder is, sometimes we can get them, we can buy the material all up front to prevent. But there's a risk that if the material costs go down, we lose money. But there's also the benefit is we don't have to sweat about worrying about if material cost goes up. So
So it's more likely than it going down.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, not really. So I've been burned before because when you deal with commodities like aluminum and steel. Sometimes steel, the bottom drops out and steel prices go down. You're like, damn, I lost $1 million.
That's right.
On
That's
that
right.
because I bought the steel and put it in the warehouse, and if I'd have waited, I could have bought it. So it depends.
Good.
Concrete generally doesn't go nowhere, but when you're talking about steel and other stuff, it does. So we'll have to talk to our buyer's agent guy.
Owner's rep.
Yeah, as we get
Owner's
to
rep,
that
good.
point. When
Owner's rep. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Owner's rep.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what would be the best way to do that. But
Yeah.
buying the material up front is one way to mitigate that. So the good news is that's locked in. You already bought all the material. It's there. That's off the plate. You know what you spent on material, and you're not going to have to deal with material inflation. But
Okay.
we'll have to figure that out later.
And good job on retaining an owner's rep.
Yeah.
Very, very smart of you to hire an owner's rep that knows construction. They can help with these questions. Fair. Okay. So this, plus you got the rural nature of being in Cochise County, as you know, but this is a large public works project. This would be one of the largest probably in
Forever.
I mean, so you should be able to attract a lot of contractors on a $100 million, just using that number now, project. The quality contractors that come down help drive the cost down. Okay. All right. So that's the 20 years, $7.5 million. So we all can sleep very good at night on that structure. Now, with the policy objective of shorter amortization, here's what we did. I'm on page 9.
So 15?
So here's what I did on page 9.
16 there.
Yeah, so here's the cushion that I set up. So look in column 5 is our 100 million, right? 15, 16-year amortization. Okay, 4.5%, if you will. Okay, I structured a 10% cushion on the 10 million. So let's say we go into a recession and our 10 million goes down to 9 million, right? We still got cash flow to make our bond payment, don't we?
Yeah.
But not a whole lot more.
But I like this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I'm
Saying
saying,
your thunder, we just went from 50 million interest down to 36 million.
there you go.
Yeah.
You're going to
Yeah.
save a lot of interest. So now this is let's call it 15, 16 year. And if we continue at 10, we're going to be able to pay more debt down, aren't we?
Yeah.
Right? This is only 9 million
Did you do a 10-year?
with the min-year. I don't think 10 year doesn't work.
Doesn't it?
No. I think we're underwater at 10. I can run that for you.
Though, because Stacy, we do.
I can run that for you in a
We
minute.
do have to account for it. We are going to see a growth on it. There may be a point in that growth that might be beneficial for the first couple of years to eat the difference and pay it out of the general fund until we hit that growth curve where the sales tax rises to the level of the maintenance.
Yeah. Well, it just depends on whether the
What's that?
As long as that eating isn't heading into other operations from the
Yeah.
general fund.
No, I got you. But back to Tom made a good point, right? So let's just say he does a 10-year amortization and it says that annual maintenance is $11.3 million. All right, so we're $1.3 million short. But then in 3 years, that revenue hits $11.3 million. So then we don't have to pull it out of the general fund anymore. We just saved probably about $6 million in interest just right there. But we paid $9 million, or $7 million out of the general fund, but it did save the taxpayers $3 million. And not be worth doing.
10 years is about 12 million bucks.
10 years is 12 million. Yeah. See,
We're going to be underwater.
So if you did the 16 and we ended up paying off in 10, would there be any, negative impact to that? Because if you do the 10 and you can't pay the bill, then there's negative impact.
That's right. That's where I was going on that.
But then,
But we
we can make a decision, for example, let's maybe on the pension fund liability, we cut back on paying the pension fund liability because I think Tom made the case one time that there's no interest on that, right?
True.
So we reduce that and we put that towards the jail bond to get the jail paid off as an option, since we're not paying interest on the pension liability anyway.
Right, but doing a 16-year amortization, we can still pay it off.
Yeah,
So that gives us a
like this.
cushion,
But
but we're not locked into a 10-year.
no, I got you. But that $36 million number, and now that's accounting for keeping $1 million off in reserve, right? So he's got $900K a year, that basically, if we were to, I don't know if you could do this, Mark, but let's just say we plan this. I think this is a reasonable projection right here, the 16-year, right?
Yeah.
But you're still putting $900K in reserve.
That's right.
Okay, which is for economic instability. Great. So let's just say we don't realize any economic stability, and at the end of the year, we got $900K sitting there, right? We just roll that in. Is there a way, and I know you can do it, because I've done this with my house payments.
On any of these plans, there's a provision for early payoff.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm getting at, to keep that interest down, is at the end of the year, we keep that $900K as a buffer. But if it doesn't materialize and the economy does well, and we're generating more than this number, immediately at the end of that year, roll that into the bond. Can we do that? Instead of it piling up to $63,000?
Oh, yeah, you can. Okay.
So that's what I'm getting at. So every year, just roll that extra. If the economy does well and we pull in that extra $900K, we keep the $10 million in reserve from the revenue already generated anyways that we could use, or we can go and look at the pension liability or whatever. But at the end of the year, if we got $900K in revenue that was generated from the TPT, roll it right into the principal.
Roll it. Yeah, pay off bonds, but yeah.
Right. Well, can you do that?
We just have to pay the bonds off. We have to take $1 million a year, for example, right? I'm rounding up.
Okay.
And it's excess revenue, pay the bonds.
But how about doing short-term and long-term bonds? How about if we do a couple 5-year bonds and a couple 10-year bonds?
We can take whatever bonds out we want with the excess revenue.
Well, that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
And then we do short-term bonds, we pay the excess revenue towards the short-term bonds.
We would probably take the $1 million, pay the long-term bonds because that's where your higher interest rate bonds are, right?
No,
That
not
lowers it.
necessarily.
Well, yeah,
You have an inverted yield.
whatever
But generally speaking.
I'm getting at whatever makes financial sense. I
Yeah,
just don't want
that's
to get a penalty for paying off early.
I'm going to propose no penalty for paying off early.
Wow, good.
Okay.
That's what we've done before.
We're talking about
again.
pensions. And I know you're aware of this, even though we're not paying interest, as you pointed
There's
out.
an exposure of liability.
Well,
to the
no,
tax-
what you put into it is paying interest to the system.
Right.
And so whatever you're not paying into it is conversely not paying interest into the system.
Well, you're paying
No, it's-
7.2% on your unfunded pension balance.
Well, somebody or other has to crunch the number.
So we-
Somebody really smart.
Somebody really smart. Yeah. So we'll get Kathy and
I got some ideas for you on that, but we'll talk about that later. But yeah, okay, are we on?
just propose it as a potential
I
option
understand.
to try to accelerate
Yeah.
payment on this
Right.
somehow.
Just as long as everybody,
Right. So, Mr. Chairman, so just to be clear on this, so the way I'm going to try to set this up for you, this is when we sell bonds, is we're going to set aside the ability to call the bonds at no penalty.
That's great.
That's great.
Now, I got to go to bat for you on that. It's,
How-
unusual on the market, but
Yeah.
I think we can
How
get
do you
it done.
perceive the investors?
I think we'll get we'll
You
get
think
demand for it.
they'll-
Yeah. We have to pay a little higher rate on the other side, but it's not nothing material versus having to, the ability to pay it down. So we can get that set up for you.
Okay.
So it'd be a slightly higher interest rate if we had to pay it through the full 16.
The investors are going to want their money, right? So
Well-
they're going to do a time value of
Right.
money analysis and say, if the county takes the full 16 years, I'm making this much money. So they're going to want, even though they may not get that, they're going to want some kind of offset
Mhm.
for that. So that's where
Yeah.
Especially if we come in with the plan. And so Mark gives us a 16-year number, and then we get together and we say, okay, we're going to pump $1 million extra in, or 2 million in, or like to Tom's point, maybe you want to get this thing done in 10 years. You know, we pump
Yep.
2.5 million in
That's right.
every year. They're gonna want to figure that out. So, but I mean, we could come to a budget agreement amongst the three of us. We would be hog tying future boards of supervisors if we do it, but we could come to agreement that we will pay the additional maintenance out of the general fund.
Now, just be thinking about this. Good conversation.
Something to
Fair?
think about. That's for us
Good conversation.
have that discussion.
Just on
Yeah.
remember on our unfunded pension
But
liabilities.
this number, as Tom points out, that number goes way down
Yep.
when you start doing that.
That's right. On your unfunded pension liability, remember, you're paying 7.2% on the unfunded balance. Pretty high rate. That's what PSPRS charges you guys. So what you do with your cash matters. And we can talk about this later.
Okay.
But we'll want to have a plan for any general fund cash.
Yeah, I actually don't understand that. So,
Okay.
I know
I'm
you
just
got your
getting at,
unfunded portion.
back to
The
your
taxpayers have to pay it.
back to your point
So
about
why is that portion
Because
getting?
that's what PSPRS charges us
right, back to your point about cash
in the
flow.
actuarial reports, Tom. Yeah.
I was just discussing the potential with regard if we have an economic downturn and we need the cash flow. The potential is to go there to get the cash flow, to keep the cash flow
Fair.
paid on. It would not be something I would prefer to do. I would like to continue to put $4 million a year towards the pension liability.
Any more information you could give me on that?
Yeah, Tom, I
Appreciate
I talked to Sharon about this. I want to do some
Okay.
a study session with you guys.
Yeah.
Okay, now, just while we're having a good discussion here.
Yeah.
Now, some policymakers like longer amortizations because it allows future generations to help pay for the public infrastructure.
And they love that.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
So you shorten it, people in the future don't pay for that building out there that's going to last you 40 years. So I know you know that. I'll bring it up. We're at 15 years roughly here. Fair. I got 16, but it's probably more.
Yeah.
That's before we take the excess revenue to pay bonds down. So we're probably 10 or 12. We can run those numbers. Probably 10 or 12 if you have $1 million a year excess plus.
It depends
Fair.
on how much risk we want to take on if the economy goes south, you know.
And we make that decision every year. We don't have to make, we make it every budget year. How are we doing? How's the revenue stream coming in? How much extra cash do we have? No different than paying your unfunded pension liability in cash to get up to 100% at some point, right? How's my budget? I got capital here. Oh, I got an extra 1.5 million. Let's pay debt down with it. So all that can happen each budget year. And then we just pay them down. Not going to be able to pay them all down, but.
No, I got you. That's
Okay.
well, we're looking
How am I
at
doing?
next at least 7 years.
Oh my gosh.
Go.
The fastest deal that was bond ever advertised in Arizona. We're going to make history together.
So hopefully we're here for 7 years.
As long as there's county roads we can go on.
Some county.
No, I got
Yeah,
that's a good
yeah.
point. That's a good point.
Okay.
But don't forget, this dollar amount here is coming out
Yeah.
of the road budget too.
Yeah, it is.
So,
All right. How we doing?
Good.
Helpful?
oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. We can come back and give you updated stuff. We know you got to make some decisions relatively soon, but I'm glad this is helpful.
Well, I didn't know that you could review it every year too. I thought it was like a fixed deal, but you can't.
Well,
He's going to negotiate
payoff.
that with the investors.
Okay.
Settling the payoff
Yeah.
is reviewed every year. Once we sell bonds, it's fixed.
Yeah.
That's why
Yeah,
we have to
but
be
the
careful.
The payoff.
But the
is-
payment, and I got to work with you on this as we go to sell bonds, we'll carve out that extraordinary call feature, we call it.
Okay.
We'll carve it out over here. And we'll just tell investors, you want to buy these bonds.
How about an early payoff? Even if can you run that number too? I hate to throw all this math at you, but I know you probably got a guy.
I do. I got great help.
I know you got a guy. So
As Zach knows.
yeah. So there's the other analysis. So the interest rate over time versus penalty may be beneficial to pay the penalty. So I don't know if you can get at the lowest interest rate possible under the premise that we're going to pay the full term of the bond and not pay it off early. But if we do pay it off early, offer the investors an early payment option. That we would, because if we keep this in reserve, this money off to the side here, we could use that to go towards the early payment option.
Yeah.
If it saves us $2 million or $3 million in interest over that time, it's better to pay the penalty.
Yeah.
Bondholders
right.
frequently sell their bonds just because it's beneficial to them. So
Well, because they can can protect the value in the future. Time value of money may be better, and they could sell it and say, "Hey, if you buy my bond, you're going to make this."
It depends. A lot of investors like to hold them. That's why they like that 10-year.
They like the cash.
The 10-year lockout's traditional.
Yeah, they like the cash.
But they don't want the bonds called.
Yeah.
They hedge them, and insurance companies buy them.
yes, when I had a house, and I think it mortgage got sold 4 times or something like that.
Yeah.
That's what the short time I owned it.
On the collateralized mortgage bonds, yeah. So, okay. So let's see. That's scenario 1A and 1B. All good?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So let's move along here. We're almost done. I guess I keep going to my. So. Okay, I don't know. Sharon said, well, let's add another. Maybe we don't need to go through this. This is the same math, except
If we had to borrow more.
I added $10 million.
Yeah. Okay, I got you. Yeah, that's fine.
Now, we're going to have $10 million in our cash account over here once we levy the sales tax, right?
Mhm.
So maybe that's off. So you want me to go through this? The numbers don't change. What's that, Tom?
No.
Okay. So I know it's just, you guys get the numbers. I think it's $750,000 more a year on 10 million. Just remember that number,
Right.
roughly. Or another 10,750,000 a year.
All right.
Good. 800.
All right.
And then I don't know. This is
Yeah, this is good. I don't think we need to go over all. This is good. We could read this on our own because this is just
the rest of this is it.
Examples and
We just did a jail district for Coconino County. They invested $20 million in their jails. We did $60 million for Yavapai County. They passed their jail bonds.
Yeah.
And then done a lot of work with our good friends in Pinal County and their whole detention, adult, and juvenile system. So with that, that concludes my presentation, and glad to answer any questions, further questions.
I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah,
I don't have any.
really good.
Yeah.
So then executive session.
Executive session. Let's do executive session to discuss ballot language.
Okay.
All right. So can I get a motion to go into executive session to discuss ballot language, please?
Mr. Chair, I move that as authorized under ARS 38-431.03 and or A4, that the Board of Supervisors enter executive session to talk about ballot language, excise tax ballot language for the potential jail district.
I second.
All right. So I have a motion to go into executive session. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 3-0. We will now go into executive session present in the room again. So can you guys say your names again for the record? Because the media just wants to know who's in executive session.
Zach Sakis, Council of the County with Greenberg Torrey.
All right. Mark,
Mark Reeder, Stifel Nicholas.
All right. Stacy.
Okay.
And then we got Paul Correa.
When you coming on that?
Okay, I think we get more in.
Yeah. All right. Of course, the three supervisors are here. Ms. Gilman is here. Mr. Casey is here. Ms. Lowenheim is here. And our county recorder, Billy Cloud, is here. All right. So we are now going into executive session. It is 10:58. We are now out of executive session. The time now is 11:52. And with no further ado, the next meeting will be immediately following this. It will be another executive session to discuss direction and legal counsel regarding the notice of claim filed by Mr. Crosby. So with that, we are adjourned.